In this episode of FRC Updates Now, FRC Director Frank Merrick joins us to talk about Rapid React and what's to come, his retirement pending and what's going to come in the future, and a little bit of legacy of Frank, and also some questions submitted by the audience coming up here on FRC Updates Now. Your destination for FIRST content, updates, and gaming.
Welcome to the fun.
FIRST Updates Now is supported by Stryker Careers. If you are a college student or recent graduate looking for an incredible internship, take a look at Stryker. Stryker provides a housing stipend, great pay, and an opportunity to work with state-of-the-art medical technology equipment. Discover why so many FIRST alumni are coming to Stryker for their internship or career at careers.stryker.com. FIRST Updates Now is supported by Kettering University. Kettering University hosts 3 co-op employment fairs each year for incoming and current students. Participating in the co-op employment process at Kettering is a great way to begin turning your robotics experience into a professional career to earn money towards graduating debt-free. If you are a senior, it's not too late to apply at kettering.edu/apply. Welcome to FRC Updates Now. I'm your host, Tyler Olds. Today we welcome on Frank Merrick. Frank has been with FIRST since 2008, starting out as the Deputy Director of FRC, and has been the Director of FRC since 2013. And while he has many notable things to know about Frank, I think a big takeaway is his displeasure for certain types of fruits on pizza. So Frank, welcome on. It's great to have you. Great to speak with you again.
Thanks so much, Tyler. Thanks for having me on. I love it, and you're right. I do. There's just something wrong with fruit on pizza, and I'm not even going to name the specific fruit I have a problem with.
We've had debates about that before, so I figure we get that out of the way now, and then we'll get into the more heavy stuff a little bit.
All right.
For this show, by the way, for Frank coming on, we have kind of 3 categories we're breaking everything into. We're going to talk Rapid React for this year, talking about leading up to where we are now as we record this, going into championships very soon. Very exciting time to get teams back and playing in person once again. Then we're going to talk a little about Frank, his legacy. As if you don't know, Frank is going to be retiring from FIRST and his role as the FRC director at the end of the year. So we'll talk a little bit more about that and leading up to it. And then we actually have questions that you, the community, submitted, and we'll be taking some of those questions for Frank to answer as well. So Frank, you ready to hop right in?
I'm ready. Let's get to it. I am ready.
Perfect. So let's start out with Rapid React a little bit and talk about Rapid React leading up the championships and the game and that sort of thing. So first off, I got to ask you, coming to this game from either a game design perspective or just as the director of FRC sort of thing, where this game is at right now, how the teams are competing, how is that led versus maybe some of your expectations coming into the season?
Well, I'll tell you, I think it's gone pretty well. I mean, we really thought that we had a good game here, because anytime you put you combine a shooting game with climbing elements, I mean, those are some of the most popular game elements that teams get used to. I will say that we didn't think that the cargo bonus was going to be reached as often as we are now seeing it. We want to have those ranking point bonuses be achievable, but maybe not something that sort of necessarily happens every match. That's probably the one element that I would say maybe was different from our I'm sure that there are others, and I need to probably preface this by saying I'm not technically on the game design team. Like, I'm kind of part of it. I'm not really part. I drop in occasionally. So I am not like in every meeting for every game or anything like that. We have a terrific 2 groups, really terrific groups of game designers that build these games up, and I'm more of an observer and an occasional contributor than being right in the middle of things.
And that's kind of flip-flop now, right? Because the pandemic pushed everything back a year essentially. So now those who were working on odd year games are now working on even years, right?
Right. So we had right. I mean, the 2022 game was originally the 2021 game.
Yeah. Speaking about that, looking from 2021, was the game modified at all? From the initial idea going into 2021, I'm sure was like, hey, this is the game we're going to go with. But then pandemic hits, we extend Infinite Recharge another year. Looking into what Rapid React is now, did the game modify at all from the original release?
I don't think that it did, really. There may have been some more refinement, but as 2021 was a sports theme, and then if you look at the center structure in Rapid React, you can see it looks like one of those playground funnels with the openings on the four sides. I
Yeah.
mean, that's really what it is. So really, we just reskinned it to be about transportation. And I don't recall, not that there weren't, because as I said, I'm not in every meeting, but I just don't recall any major changes that were made between the design we had and the design we went with, except the look and the kind of the names of things.
What was the original look, or was there a different name as well too?
Boy, I don't remember what the original name was.
Yeah.
I'm terrible with names, Tyler. I'm
Sure
sorry.
some sort
I
of
don't
some sort of
remember,
alliteration.
but it
I'm
was
sure.
it was kind of like well, if you look at the cargo now, you can see that it's a giant tennis ball, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so because it's even got the stripes on it.
Yeah.
So we actually had to go in, but we didn't want it to look like a tennis ball. Because for the cargo season, so we actually got with the manufacturer, and they could. I don't think there was even any extra charge or anything, and that's why those seams that you would normally see in a tennis bar are
Mm-hmm.
now colored
Oh,
to
that's
match
really interesting.
the
Yeah.
color of the cargo. Yeah, so that's because we didn't want it to look like a tennis ball, but I don't think it cost us anything. So
You mentioned that
your
the center.
registration fees were not wasted on that, I think.
Yeah, well, you mentioned like the center structure is supposed to be is kind of like a playground thing. Was there like a playground theme to the initial concept for
Yeah,
Rapid React?
I think there was something like that, because it almost like the hangar was more like a jungle gym or something along those lines. So, but like I said, really the structure, from what I remember, did really not
Yeah.
change. We changed the names of things. We made the cargo look less like tennis balls, but that was about it.
By the way, from a game piece perspective, I don't think I've ever seen a game piece hold up so well in a game for so long, especially something that's readily available and it's not like a custom manufactured thing.
Right. Yeah, they're really tough. Yeah, we were very happy with that. Picking game pieces is always a challenge, because we want them to be available, we want them to be inexpensive,
Yeah.
and we want them to last. And so sometimes it's pick two, right?
Right. But I really do think that this year, I mean, I think you and your team hit the mark on that in regards to picking something that has been kind of checking off all those boxes of what teams have been looking for in a game piece. So I'm delighted to see. I was at the First in Texas Championships this past weekend, and the two MCs that did like the grand finals, one wore a deflated red cargo hat, and the other one wore a blue one. And I'm pretty sure they just popped them. I don't think they like pulled them off the pop drawer or anything like that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they're pretty tough. We were really happy with that.
looking at the championships, I know that a team update just came out, and on that update it said it was the final update of the year for that. But I got to ask in regards to that, looking into there, you mentioned that the cargo expectations were kind of exceeded, right? Teams are getting it more. It's almost at a point now where if you don't get it, that's where your team falls behind. So is there any possibility that we're going to see thresholds raised or anything like that for championships?
There is no possibility at this point. As we said, the team update that we put out was the last one. There was an impassioned debate within First about whether we should change the threshold for the cargo bonus, and there are pluses and minuses, and eventually we did not make that change. You probably remember that we did make a change like that in 2016 with the tower. I can't remember what it's called. Well, I know it was Stronghold, but I don't remember what the tower bonus was. And there pluses and minuses all the way around, and it was not an easy decision, but we absolutely talked about it. But that update was the last one, and so we won't be seeing any unless. Well, I'm saying that now, but I'm not
Things
expecting
can always
any
happen,
surprises.
right? So.
I'm not expecting any surprises from the district championships this weekend, but our plan is for that to be the last update.
Fair enough on that. Speaking about going into championships on here, two things to ask. Just general your excitement level and any words in regards to going into Houston Championships in just about a week from now. Anything you want to let teams know, or anything they should be aware of?
We're really looking forward to championship. We have we actually, and I think this has been announced. We were concerned, are we going to get the volunteers we need? We've
Oh
got the
yeah,
volunteers we need. We actually had to
awesome.
close down volunteer registration because we
Wow.
have more than enough right now, and we weren't sure what that would be like. We know that um, championship will be masked. Like we will be, everyone will need to be masked, and I know that's not popular with lots of people. And frankly, I don't like wearing a mask for a long time either. I don't think anyone finds that comfortable, and I don't think they would do it voluntarily if they were had the option or didn't have any concerns
Sure.
about catching a disease. So really just reminding teams, everyone involved, everyone going, bring your, as long with your masks, bring your gracious professionalism. There's been, I think, maybe not just within First Robotics competition, but sort of in the culture generally, there seems to be more anger, and I understand it. Like it is something where we're all there to have a good time, and we just really need to focus on that, and just be patient and bring a smile, even if we were not going to be able to see your smiles underneath the mask. That's my recommendation.
I always tell people when we film interviews with them and they're wearing masks, I'm like, smile still, and that's you can
Yeah.
still see it in the eyes though,
You
right?
can
Like,
still see that. Yeah, you
yeah,
see the little squint. Yeah, sure. So we're looking forward. We're looking forward. It's a great event. I think it's a really good game. We've gotten positive response. We ask teams and after event surveys, we ask them their
hmm,
satisfaction level, quality level on the game, and we were at 88% favorable rating.
awesome,
So the team said the quality was either good, or 88% of the team so far, that respondents, I should say, not teams,
yeah.
respondents, because it's not a scientific survey, have said that either the game is good or the quality of the game is good or very good, which is right up there with the higher games that we've seen. So it's good. It's good, and part of that, admittedly, everybody just wants to get back to playing robots, right? It's
Oh
been
yeah,
so long
especially I
that,
mean in person
and
for sure. Yeah,
oh yeah, when I went to the couple of events that I went to over the season, everybody was just so happy to be back, and we're happy to be back too.
yeah, totally. I do want to ask you a quick follow up, and I'm not sure that this isn't your wheelhouse necessarily, but there is a thing in regards to for mass wearing at championships that says in event areas. Do you know if in George R. Brown is the hallway area considered that as well too? Like, is it in
I
the
don't
entire building itself?
I don't know that. That's a detail I'm not familiar with.
Sure.
I'm sorry. I
Yeah,
thought it was
and we did
in.
we
I
did
thought
reach
it
out
was
to
in.
the operations about that too, so we hope to hear back from them.
It's a great. Honestly, it's a great question for them. I thought it was all indoor areas. I may be wrong.
Sure.
So something to ask about.
And then lastly, is there any word? I know we have week 7 events wrapping up on Sunday still, right? So,
Sure.
any indication of when divisions are going to be up for championships at all?
This is a tricky one because, as you know, we're probably going to be identifying teams for championships even through Tuesday,
Yeah.
right? And so because what we did was we surveyed this compressed schedule has been a great deal of challenge, especially for districts that have their district championships week 7. And so what we actually did was we surveyed all the teams that are in those districts and asked, if you were invited to championship, will you be able to come? Yes, no, or unsure. And this is helping to inform, because with the number of teams that Michigan is sending to championship, what is it,
Mm-hmm.
63 or 64 or
Yeah,
something?
something like that.
We've got a long list of invites to send out, and we don't want to spend time having to invite a team that has told us, look, I can't go to championship, right? And so those teams, and we explain that to the teams in the survey, that if you say no, you won't be getting an invite even if you're on the list. So we're trying to focus it down so that we have as few as possible declines, but
Yeah.
certainly there are going to be
Yeah,
declines.
I'm
Like,
sure.
it was an optional survey, not everybody answered it, lots of people did, which was really helpful. But really we're probably looking at Tuesday before we have finalized lists. um, but we're also examining the possibility, do we release partial division lists,
Oh,
before final
interesting.
division list. And so we'll have more information about that coming out. Well, it's got to be shortly,
Yeah,
Tyler,
yeah, it
because
has to be within a week, right? So,
championship is 6 days away, right? So
yeah.
it's
So the paraphrase, like, is the goal is essentially Tuesday, but it's going to be in flux depending on
yeah, it's
possibilities.
just um this is our first time going through this, and so
Yeah.
we have people, and the staff and the district folks are so great. Of course, they're all in on making sure that we get the teams invited as quickly as we can, because we know that they have to make plans. Hopefully, many of them have already made plans, but I mean, it's a holiday coming up Sunday, Easter Sunday, but and we're having people working. Yeah, unfortunately we have to go forward with that. But everyone is absolutely dedicated to make sure we want a full, fun championship, and that's what the goal is, and we want to make sure we invite all the teams that deserve to be invited.
Yeah, and thanks a lot, by the way, the first staff for busting their butts on that stuff. I'd say maybe the one saving grace, and this is nothing political on this, but without there
Mhm.
being two champs, they don't have to do 2 weeks straight like that, right?
That
So,
is
um,
part of our thinking was, boy, that'll be, because that well, doing multiple weekends
yeah,
in a
it's
row, as
it's a
you know,
grind. Yeah.
there's just a lot. There's just a lot going on. Yeah.
Let's keep moving on, Frank, and talk a little bit more about you and your tenure at First. You started out in 2008, if I remember correctly. So good math. 14
Hmm.
years now in
Yeah.
this program,
Yep.
right? So,
Yep.
so I'd love to hear a little bit more about leading into First. Let's talk a little bit about your journey through it, and of course, talk a little bit about what's to come after as well too. So in 2008, you became the deputy director of
Right.
FRC. What was your experience
Hmm.
with First prior? Like, how'd you get involved in the first place?
So I actually started out as a mentor in 2003. I was a mentor on 131 Chaos out
Mm-hmm.
of Manchester, New Hampshire, and I started that way just because on a cold call. 131 had lost their build site, and the lead mentor there, Dave Kelso, was WFA, became a WFA
Yep.
later. Ended up calling. I was working for Rockwell Automation at the time, which had a manufacturing facility actually in downtown Manchester, and he just called up and asked to speak to the engineering manager. He didn't even know my name, and I was manager of manufacturing engineering and quality at that time. And we called him in, and that's how it started. So I started mentoring 131. I also started some FLL teams in my hometown and some junior FLL teams kind of in my hometown as well. So I just kind of was all in. At some point I did start, and I can't remember, it was maybe 3 or 4 years in. I did stop mentoring the FRC team because it was just too much, because FLL would be in the fall and then FRC would be in the spring, and I was just never home, and it was too much. But then was looking for other opportunities after Rockwell, and I put my name into First, and actually applied for what was the time was the first Lego League Junior manager,
Yep.
and my resume and stuff kind of got passed around, and they happened to be looking for a deputy director in FRC, and that's how I got brought in, as a series of fortunate events, I think.
And Bill was a director at that time, right, when you got brought in?
Yes. Yep. He
So,
was Bill Miller.
yeah, looking at from the deputy director position, you became director in 2013. What prepared you most to kind of assume that role? Like, what are maybe important lessons or experiences that you had during those years leading up to becoming the director?
Probably so one thing, I was actually an FTA for a few years.
Sure.
And so that was a big sort of learning experience, getting firsthand information on the ground of what it's like to actually attempt to run an event. And I would say, um, probably the other experience, and it was a negative one, but it helped to experience a broad range of sort of activities and interact with different people, was the incident on Einstein in 2012,
Yeah.
when an individual was intentionally forcing disconnects with robots. They call it a hacking incident. I don't know if it was really hacking, or just
We'll call that
force,
in quotes.
forcing
Yeah. So,
forcing disconnects. And it was so traumatic, and it was so difficult with everyone involved, including the field personnel, of course, because, like, what's going on? We
yeah.
can't tell what's going on. And then you probably remember we went through that entire investigation. We duplicated the field. We even brought in the original teams, and so we got to test all this out to understand exactly what's been going on. But I was in the room, we were talking to teams when Matt Pilot, who's the manager of our electrical engineering, senior manager of our electrical engineering folks, revealed to the teams there that it was an intentional event, and no one knew at that point. We knew. I mean, eventually we found out, and
Yeah.
we even talked to the person who had done it. Um, but it was, and so it was just working with everybody, working with NI, working with the teams, and coming up with this report that really everyone bought into and said, "Yep, this is what happened." And it was extremely difficult for everyone, but a real learning experience.
And then leading into that, for you personally, after the Einstein incident that happened, you, I believe, took, it was an interim director is you went into before you became the full director. Is that right?
Yes, I was. What did they call me? Acting
There
director.
you go.
That's what
Sure.
it
Yeah.
was. Acting director, and that was actually for a year.
Yeah.
And I interviewed for the full position, and they brought in folks from outside as well to interview. So it wasn't like they were just certainly weren't just looking at me. And I remember I went to our president at the time. It may have been John Dudas. I can't recall. And I
Yeah. When
said,
that transition was, yeah.
yeah, how do you want me to just be like a caretaker, until the final decision is made? And he said, I want you to be acting as director. So I felt like that gave me some permission to, do things a little differently, or whatever the situation might be, and not just like kind of hold the line and do everything as we had been doing. And that's when we uh, started, trying to be a little more personal, like on the blogs and so forth, and just trying to be as direct and open as as we could. We're still not at the point where 100% transparency, of course, because you couldn't. Like, if we wanted to, we could publish a transcript of every word that is said within first every day, and that would be fully transparent. But we're not.
I'm sure that'd be
We're
great.
just, there's so yeah, yeah. Uh, so that's sorry, that was a long answer.
No, that's all right. And one of the things I want to ask you, I guess, leading into, if you look at, from 2013 until now, to you, what are some, defining moments? Maybe not necessarily that you directly have done for things, but
Oh
your
yeah.
experience going in. Because I'll agree with you. Things like, the openness going in, the blogs that have been done. No matter what, you and I experience this, right? That, like, no matter what we do, somebody's still going to be mad, no matter what,
Oh
right?
yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But I love to hear
For
about, like,
sure.
what you personally feel. What has been like, what makes
So,
you proud to
s-
accomplish
some of
going
the
through.
some of the monumental moments, I'll say, during my time, and as you said, this is not me. This is, it's the entire FRC experience is a team effort with volunteers and the teams
Yeah.
and the staff, and we all kind of together create this magic, and you couldn't remove any one part and still have it work. Some defining moments for me, and I know we only have a short time left here, but um, I loved 2016 Stronghold. That was the first time that we actually released the game name ahead of time, and we had
Mm-hmm.
this teaser, and it wasn't just a clue, but it was a video teaser to tell teams what could expect and what the name of the game was. And so that was fantastic, I thought. And plus we had some other innovations on that field with the movable defenses and so forth.
Yeah.
And I think the other kind of defining moment, since I've been around, has been elimination of stop build day, which was years in the making, honestly, years, and back and forth, and creating PowerPoints and presenting to people, to talk to the board, and because it went, that approval had to go all the way up through. But I think that for me, that was a defining change.
Was there a lot of resistance in that? I know it was a long. I mean, anytime it's a bureaucratic, it's a long process, right? But
Right.
but was there resistance, like, leading up to that?
Some people raise concerns. Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't say there was a great deal of like a massive amount of resistance, but
Sure.
we did have to put together and justify. We're looking at making a change to what had been a fundamental concept in FRC for forever, right? And we're saying, no, we want to change that for these reasons, and here are all the reasons. And eventually, we got the correct buy-in, and we made it happen.
as we look to the future for things, I'm sure stepping away has its own piece and internal struggle a little bit with that.
Hmm.
I've contemplated that. What happens at some point whenever I step away from the program, because we all have
Sure.
at some point we're all going to step away, right?
Yep.
So a couple things for that. Does First currently have an interim or replacement lined up at all for your position?
We don't, but we should be seeing some movement on that soon in terms of starting a search.
Sure. So I guess my question is, there's not going to be like an announcement prior to championships or at championships or anything
No,
like that.
no, 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 no,
Okay.
no,
Uh,
nope.
and and looking for whoever the next person that will assume the FRC director role, do you have any advice for that person you'd like to carry on?
Uh, I don't like giving advice much. I'll be honest about that. I'll say that I hope that they would continue and maybe even go farther in trying to maintain contact with teams and uh, direct contact with teams and trying to maintain as best as we can those the sharing with teams what we know and being as open as we can and honest and transparent, and when we make a mistake, say that we've made a mistake.
Yeah. Well, our last few minutes, we have a few questions from the community that have been submitted on here. So you can take this as short or long as you want, and then we'll just keep moving on to the next ones on this. So first off, we'll start a little bit lighter. By the way, thanks to those on Chief Delphi and the Fun Discord for submitting questions that we took. We had more than what we could take, so we tried to get as well-rounded as we could. Creative Casey asking, what's been your favorite FRC game and why?
I would say, and I apologize, I'm going to have to make this short. I have another meeting that I need to get to, but I would
Yep.
say that and I already mentioned it, my favorite FRC game is 2016 Stronghold, and for the reasons that I indicated, it was kind of a breakthrough for us, being getting teams excited before actual kickoff with releasing the name and generating that kind of speculation. And I just thought that that was a game where we made, normally a field reset is not so exciting. That was a field reset that year, I think, was part of the show because with those defenses changing around. Yeah.
For sure. Jared from 1836 asking, do you plan on being involved in First at all in the future, like as a judge, any sort of volunteer, mentors on teams, anything like that?
I hope so. Yes, I probably won't be mentoring a team uh, because I do want to have a retirement,
Yeah.
but um, I would hope so. Yeah, my plan. I would love to volunteer with First again, and I don't know if that would be like an FLL or like at a judge, something like an FRC judge or something along those lines. I think me volunteering for FRC directly could be a little bit of a challenge, just because folks know me and they, like, even my wife tried to volunteer for FRC and she couldn't, like, they kept treating her like the director's
Yeah.
spouse and
Yeah.
not like like a volunteer, so she eventually had to stop.
We'll take one more question that we have in
Okay.
here from Jet from 4476 says, what do you think the biggest obstacle for growth of First is right now, and what can teams do to help out with that?
That's a terrific question. I think the program, so I think, and this, I don't think this would apply necessarily to all the programs in First, like to varying degrees it would, but First robotics competition is just, it's a lot of work. And while I think the value is absolutely there, if you look at it in terms of dollars, it's also a lot of money,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think, like I said, I think it's like the money that anyone puts into First robotics competition, I think is really valuable, especially when you compare what like a typical high school football program might cost, like this school, right? It's probably much more than most teams spend on First robotics competition. But it's big. There's a lot of work. It's complicated. The mentors are, many of them, especially if you're a lead mentor, it may be the equivalent of like taking on a half-time job, outside of your regular job. And so, uh, and I don't know. I'm up for ideas about how we can make that. We're always trying to find ways that we can make the mentoring experience easier and do things like get rid of the annoyances. Like the website isn't quite where we want it to be, and
Sure.
we're going to be investing in that and make things simpler there. Um, but I do feel that many times I just feel like sometimes like we're um, rowing against the tide, and where people have so much going on now. They have like teenagers, folks in school, adults. They have so many options now of how to spend their time, and it can be just hard to say. I think once people experience a program, they love it. But how do we get from saying, yeah, you know what, this is hard, we think it's worthwhile, you should try it anyway. So if anyone has ideas on that, I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, real quick on that, I'll just add on, because a lot of times for both adults and students, that light bulb doesn't really come on until they actually go to an event, right? So
Right.
it takes a little bit of time. That's a lot of investment if
I
you think
agree.
about it leading up into
Oh
that,
yeah,
for
yeah.
sure. Well,
Yeah.
Frank Merrick, once again, thanks for taking the time to speak with us in the community, and we appreciate your service over the years. And we're definitely going to miss you in the role. I'm sure whoever takes over, we hope we can give them great support as well too. But thank you so much, and I'm sure we'll see you around at championships as well.
Thanks,
Frank.
Tyler. We'll see you.
Thanks to Kettering University for their support of this video. Did you know that over 30% of the student population at Kettering University was in high school robotics? These same students have received a portion of over $7 million in robotics scholarships from Kettering University. See why so many in FIRST chose to go to Kettering University at kettering.edu. Thanks to Stryker Careers for their support in this video. Apply the skills you gained as a FIRST student or mentor and help change the world at Stryker. Stryker is the top career choice for many of those in FIRST because of their commitment to innovation and saving lives. Learn more about the incredible culture at Stryker and view their thousands of positions available around the world at careers.stryker.com. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell to stay up to date on our new videos. Keep the conversation going and provide your input to our content. Watch our live shows at twitch.tv/firstupdatesnow. Join our Discord at discord.gg/firstupdatesnow. And check out Fun FTC on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And First Updates Now on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter.